right, welcome back everyone for another episode of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the video and article that I do for comicbookinvest.com where I talk about those books you can probably still find tucked away in those discount boxes, those cheap bins, those dollar bins at your LCS, flea markets, yard sales, half-price books, wherever you're doing your cheap comic hunting. I think you can find some of these books buried in there based off of some of the recent news, rumors, announcements, things going on in the comics, things going on television shows, movies, etc. Just sort of things that come to mind when I look at some of the current, pop culture, comic-y things going on right now. These are some books that kind of spark my interest, and I think you can find out there. So you can go on a little bit of a scavenger hunt this weekend when you go hunting. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if you find any of these books in the comments down below. I'd love to hear that too. And make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's selection of books, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, well, let's just get right into it and get into the new release comics for this week. These are some books that I've already picked up, already flipped through and read, and these are some things that I think you can go and find that connect to some of the characters that might be appearing, some of the concepts that are introduced, etc. So, with that said, let's get right into Avengers number 23. New this week, yes, Black Cat has joined the team, but she seems to have her own motives and reasons for doing so. She's running through this issue with Kang, and also in this this issue, we're reintroduced to a character from way back called the Gatecrasher. That's right. This broad right here, like a blue Nia Jax, comes rushing in and messing things up for the Avengers. Gatecrasher and her crew, the TechNet, like her crew of bounty hunters, all appeared together way back over in the UK first. So that was Gatecrasher. Here's her crew, a bunch of mercenary alien-like type creatures. Bunch of weirdos, bunch of weird characters that are just kind of, I mean, look at the floating Grogu baby with the huge head. This is some silly stuff, but comics should be still silly. Comics should be fun. So take that all when you consider what I'm talking about here. That said, originally, these characters all first appeared here in Captain Britain number 3. This is like the second volume of the UK comic for Captain Britain. So this was March of 1985, and it's sort of an anthology bit in here. So there's a few stories, but in one of the stories, we are introduced here to Gatecrasher, and like I said, her crew, the TechNet. But I know this isn't a normal size comic. This is something you're going to find in most comic boxes, but you never know what you might find out there. Maybe it's buried in a box of magazines. Point being, this thing can still do all right. Very thin, very flimsy paper for these UK books, but they are oversized, larger than your normal comic. But you can see mostly these things have sold in lots recently, and we're talking about runs of like, 6 to a dozen or so. So it's kind of hard to give a price on this of what you might get for an individual issue, but asking prices you can see are only $5, $7, $8. It's not that expensive on its own. And who knows where you might stumble across something like this. Now, if you're not overseas or not collecting UK books and you want the first US version, well, I believe it wasn't until a little bit later, a few years later, in December of 1987 with this Excalibur special edition book. It's like a prestige format, almost like a thicker cardstock cover. It did have a cover price of $3.25, so it was a little bit pricey for the day, but today that's nothing. But inside this, we do see Gatecrasher once again showing up inside this book. So if you want the US version, I guess it would be this book from all I can see out there. And this thing is also cheap. If you want to go and pick it up, you could find this thing selling for $3.50 to about like $5. Asking prices are only $2, $2.40, maybe as high as $9. But, again, it's not that pricey of a thing. And it's just kind of a silly, fun character. And she is right there on the cover, too. You can see her right next to Nightcrawler and behind Rachel Summers Phoenix. But with that said, Gatecrasher is kind of a fun, weird character. So this is the kind of fun little things I like going and hunting for. With that said, another new Marvel book that was out this week, The Spectacular Spider-Man. And right there on the cover, you can see the dynamic duo of Spider-Man was taken down by a dynamic duo of Electros. And yes, there are two Electros. You got the one Max Dillon. I think it's Max Dillon, right? Is that his name? And then we've got Francine Fry on the other end of it. I know I've talked about Francine before, but let's just get into it and just cover it again for those who might have missed the prior versions of this. So with that said, she's dressed just like Electro, powers just like him. She, in fact, I think got them from him in a weird sort of convoluted way. We'll get to that in a second. But Francine Fry, that's the Electro that we're talking about here. There she is. She's been an Electro for a little bit now. Her first appearance, like as Electro, was in August of 2016. Part of the Dead No More, resurrected by the Jackal. She's kind of have Electro powers now. Amazing Spider-Man 17. I believe this is an Alex Ross cover, which is pretty cool. But inside this issue, we do see Francine there with her boy Electro. She has a weird sort of character. She kind of collects supervillains. That's how she was created. Collecting them by dating them, if you're catching my drift. So Electro was one of her dudes. But she actually died a while back, and that's why she was reintroduced and cloned again and returned. I think it's part of this storyline with the Dead No More. But anyway, she's got these powers now, and inside the end of this issue, you can see here she's all dressed up like an Electro too. So you got rhinos, you got Electros, cool. This book actually had a little bit of interest on it a while back. It was only like $10 to $15, but these days you can find it cheap again. Copies selling for basically around cover $4, $4.25. There's some asking prices looking for about $5 up to $8, but again, not a huge deal. It is her first as Electro, but her character goes back a little bit further if you want to go digging a little bit deeper. With that said, I mentioned she died before because she was introduced and I believe dies in the same issue. But her character of Francine Fry, before she had any Electro powers, still have the same look. Looks a little bit like Shotzi from NXT, if you guys know what I'm talking about, you wrestling fans out there. But she first appeared a couple of years earlier in May of 2014 in Amazing Spider-Man #2. This is the run that introduced us to Silk. So this is one of those issues in between Silk's cameos and her first introduction. So issue 2, easily forgotten about, easily passed over. But this is her inside the guts of this book. Electra is going to her for help. Hey, Francine. And she's got pictures of all of her conquests on the wall, I guess. And so she doesn't make it out of this, but she is brought back later and she becomes an Electro eventually. But this would technically be her first appearance. So with that in mind, it's very cheap. It's $2.46, $5.50 gets you the issues 2 and 3 and 6. Like it's not a pricey book at all. Copies listed $2 up to $4. It's cover price and less easily. So with that said, those are a couple fun Marvel books for you to hunt. But before we move on to the DC side of things, I want to remind all of you out there who haven't tried Whatnot yet, use the link down below, sign up, get yourselves a free $15. You can spend it on whatever you want with whomever you want. Buy comics, buy toys, whatever you want on the whole application. Free $15 just to try it out. You help out the channel, you get yourself something nice, so you really got nothing to lose. So check out that link down below and sign up and give it a shot. Now, with that said, let's get on over to the DC side of things. And I don't know if I covered Dr. Mid-Nite before, but if I did, we're going to do it again because she's right here front and center on the new issue of JSA. So let's just get into it. Issue 4, sitting there with Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, the whole deal. But Dr. Mid-Nite is right there. This is the second Dr. Mid-Nite. You know how JSA is more like legacy characters. So this is a legacy character for the original Dr. Mid-Nite. And again, she's been around for a bit now. She's been around since the 80s. So this isn't like some newfangled modern, introduction. This Dr. Mid-Nite was introduced way back in Infinity Incorporated. That's right, Infinity Incorporated, drawn by Todd McFarlane, by the way. For all of you who forget that Todd McFarlane actually was the artist on Infinity Incorporated for a little stretch there. This was August of 1985, and you can see she's right there on the cover as Dr. Mid-Nite. So inside the book, you also get a little bit of a backstory too, and we get the look of her here. So, boom. First Dr. Mid-Nite, or her as Dr. Mid-Nite. This book, not too expensive. You can see copies, $4, $5. A lot of like half a dozen issues sold at auction for only $3.25. Infinity Incorporated is one of those DC runs that's kind of fun to hunt, and you can find them out there in those cheap boxes. And like I said, this is old McFarlane art. So if you're a fan of Todd McFarlane, you probably want to grab these anyway, just for your collection, even though he wasn't quite as polished as he would eventually get when he started working on Spider-Man and whatnot. But still, it's still Todd. And with that said, copies listed $4, $5, as high as $10, really. It's not that pricey of a book. And, it is what it is. It's a first appearance that you can go and find out there. Now, this is her first appearance as Dr. Mid-Nite, but the character herself, Dr. Beth Chapel, actually showed up 2 issues before this. So if you really want to get technical and really want to go back a little bit further, you're want to go and grab that issue 2, just to cover your bases. But Dr. Beth Chapel, because she is a doctor, first appeared here in issue 19 of Infinity Incorporated, also drawn by McFarlane. So you got that going for it. Like I said, 2 months earlier, so June 85. There she is. My name is Dr. Beth Chapel. She's a doctor at this hospital helping out the JSA. I think Jade was down, and they needed some help. That said, the character would eventually become the Dr. Mid-Nite that we know. But back then, no clue yet. But here, this book actually sells for a little bit more. I don't know if it's just because of the cover or what, but copies have sold for $5 to $10, and then a lot of like 3 or 4 issues sold for $25. This one has a little bit more of a interest, I guess. I don't know. $5, $6, $10 still is what the ask is. So I guess it's kind of in the same ballpark. It just looks like the copies paid for were a little pricier than I would have expected. That's all. Now, with that said, she's not the only character in this recent issue of JSA that we can look back on, as we can also take a quick peek at Jakeem Thunder, who comes back here in this issue as he's all manacled up against the wall there, all locked down in this issue as the Obsidian finds him. Now, Jakeem Thunder has a bit of a weird past history as well. Technically, the first appearance would be in an alternate universe for the DC side of things, and that would be the Kingdom Come universe. So in May of 1996, this would really be the first appearance of this character, Jakeem Thunder right here. Boom. But we're just going to cover this one really quickly and then see how he was eventually worked in to the DCU proper. But Kingdom Come #1, it's a book you probably all know. You probably already have it for all I know. You can see copies could sell for $7, $10, $15. Doesn't do too bad. I mean, it is sort of a key DC book, but most people like to get the whole collection. So what is it, 4 issues? So I also seen a lot of lots of these sold together, and copies listed are only $5 to $10. It's really not that pricey, even though you see some higher price sales. Those are some really nice copies because they want to get them graded, and they'll be a little bit cleaner. It is square bound, so a lot of copies should be in decent shape, but you never know what you come across out there. Now, with that said, that was in another universe, technically, the Kingdom Come universe. In the regular DC, and I know DC itself also is kind of weird, and with a crisis, pre-crisis, post-crisis, New 52, post-New 52, Rebirth, I get it. Point being, Flash 134, they take the idea of Jakeem Thunder here and kind of bring him into the regular DC, kind of comic universe. It was sort of retconned in, because I don't know if this was the plan all along, but apparently, and the best I could figure out, they point to this character getting his powers, and this is during the JLA run, by Jay Garrick handing him a pen. And everybody points to this book, this Flash 134. I've read through this story, and the only moment I can see with Jay Garrick and a pen is right here, so I'm assuming this little kid here is supposed to be Jakeem Thunder, and he, even though we don't see it in panel here, he must have handed him the pen, because that pink pen comes back. It does. So I'm assuming this is what they're retconning in as his first cameo appearance. But, man, we're really grasping at straws. But it is what it is. Most online resources point to this book as being his first. And it is what it is. This book is very cheap anyway, so it's not like you're going to invest a whole lot if you go and pick it up. $1.79, $4, $3. Copies listed, $4 to $10. It is what it is. But again, he had a little bit of a stretch in that JLA run, which I'm going to show you here, where we get more of the backstory and get introduced. Issue 26, December 1998. Inside here, we get like a preview. This is like a teaser. He looks a bit older here in this particular panel as part of this prologue, and then eventually he looks a lot younger once we actually see him in story. But here, to me, he looked older. It looked like a grown-ass man. It doesn't look like a kid. but he is a kid later on. It is what it is. But this was like a little tease prologue at the end of the issue here in JLA 26. Again, this whole JLA run is a series you can find out there in those dollar bins, really. I mean, look, oh, shoot, I didn't even get the right prices. But point being, it's only a couple bucks. And moving on from that, as you get further on in that JLA run, you'll get more issues. I think there's another prologue with Jakeem, and then eventually he helps the team out, and he got the genies, and he's got the pen, and they explain the whole thing. And we're like by issue like 38 or something like that. It runs, it's a good long storyline there. But point being, go and find those in those dollar bins. Sorry I didn't get the pricing on that one, but we're going to just move on because I'm not going to stop this to go and get that one. It's only a couple bucks. It's not a pricey book at all. All right, the next DC book I want to quickly talk about is Two-Face. So Two-Face number 3, right there on the cover, we see the character of Baby Doll. But inside, we also see her inside here playing around with Scarface, the ventriloquist dummy. But there she is, Baby Doll. She has this condition where she stopped aging. But again, this is a character that goes back to the animated series. I think in 1994, there was a whole episode based around Baby Doll. It kind of has that Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of vibe with the baby and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That's kind of what I'm getting out of this. But character showed up in the cartoon back in 1994, and then we didn't see her really in the DC comics until much, much later. I tried to search and tried to find any connection that I could really get to, and the first one is actually this crossover with the Turtles that I was able to nail down. So in February 2017, we did get a quick little snippet of her down there. I guess since it's Turtles, it's Batman, they went to the animated stuff, so they took any animated characters they could find. So there she is, Baby Doll, boom. This book, very cheap. You can see here, copy sold for $1.25 at auction with 2 bids. Copies listed for about $4. I think there's a couple of covers on it, so be mindful of that. But that was 2017. And then maybe this started a trend, because in the next year, Batman White Knight, which is, again, another outside universe, another Elseworlds universe in the DC side of things, Sean Murphy's Batman White Knight, we get shown another version of her right here, hanging out with Killer Croc. Cool. Again, it's just tiny little cameo appearances, but this is all we really got to work with the character. And this book, yeah, it could do all right. I mean, yes, the entire run or entire 5-issue set there. I'm not entire, but a 5-issue run sold for $3.25 at auction, and it looks like they got a couple of oh no, what is it? 1 through 5 and 8. So it's 6 issues. That was only $3. And then copies listed individually like $8 to $14. Yeah, White Knight was a popular series, so there's a lot of listings out there that I think holding on to those old prices, but I'm sure you can find this out there if you go digging. Now, that's 2018, and then we have to wait a couple more years before we get her again in September 22 in Harley's 30th anniversary special. And I know what you're thinking. This is a 100-page, super spectacular issue, and this thing I think was like $10 at cover. You're not going to find that in the cheap boxes you're thinking, right? We'll get to that. But inside this book, boom, it's an anthology book. There she is. We got Baby Doll. She's got a few more panels in the story, whatever. But yes, Baby Doll again. Probably her biggest appearance in all of these comics was this one. And this one isn't technically in the DC universe. So not an Elseworlds tale, I guess. Where the other two would technically be Elseworlds. So realistically, I guess we would say this is her first. I don't know. But as I said, 100-page spectacular. Cost $10. You're not going to find it in a dollar bin. I wouldn't be so sure, because even online, copies have sold for $1, $2, multiple covers. They did a lot of covers on this book. There were exclusives and store exclusives, etc., incentives, whatever. Yes, copies are sold for as cheap as $1 or $2. Copies listed, yeah, there's copies listed for $5 here, $8 there. Point being, go out there looking, go out there digging. You never know what you could find. Even if you look online, you might be able to snag one of these for $1 because somebody else did. Just saying. Now, with that said, if you need your supplies, your bags, your boards, long boxes, short boxes, top loaders, whatever, use the BCW link down below. Also, use my code RENA10. Save yourself 10% off your entire order. It sucks having to buy bags and boards and boxes because it's just stuff to store your comics, but you got to do it so you could properly store your comics. And since you got to spend that money anyway, you might as well save some while you do. So save 10%. Use that code RENA10 next time you make an order. Now, with that said, let's get on over to TV. Now, I know we usually do rumors and things like that, but for today, I want to cover TV because apparently we are getting Buffy back. So we're getting a new Buffy series in the works, and Buffy herself is planning to return. So to me, that reads it's a sequel. It's something that's going to be in the future, right? I mean, I don't know if all of you watched Buffy. I did back in the day, so you know how it ended with all of the extra Slayers, yada, yada, yada. I don't know if they're going to pick up from there or what, but Buffy as a character has been around for a while. She's been around since the late 90s, even in comic form. Most people like to point towards and look for that Buffy the Vampire Slayer 1. I mean, yeah, it's cool cover. You got Art Adams, right? And it's also got a photo cover. First series, Dark Horse. Yeah, folks are hunting this. It's not that expensive. This is something that goes for about $5. You can see copies listed for $6, $7. Not a pricey book at all. Something you definitely should keep an eye out for when you're out there digging, because a lot of folks, like picking up Buffy. But if you do want her actual first appearance, you actually got to go a month before this was released, because she showed up in this Dark Horse Presents annual from 1998 that came out in August. So inside this anthology that's also got a Hellboy story and whatever, there is a Buffy story. It's in black and white inside, but it's still a Buffy story, and it reads just like the TV show. It's a Buffy story. So check this thing out. This one, however, is not as cheap as you might think. This one could get pricey because a lot of folks know this is the first. So you might have to do some digging, maybe get lucky. But I just figured I'd tell you about it so you didn't just assume that Buffy 1 was her first appearance. But you can see here, copies could sell for $40 to $70 these days. Also, the news is kind of helping this. So it's kind of bringing up some of these prices. You can see those sales are both from February. So those are very recent sales, and copies listed are looking for $40 to $60 easy. You can see even higher listings than that. There's some graded copies, etc. Again, it's a book to keep an eye out for. You might get lucky in finding one out there. But if you want to go beyond that and you don't want to go and just hunting for her first or the first issue, another idea that might be kind of fun is that you might want to kind of gamble on what this TV show is going to be about. I don't know exactly. We got to figure if Buffy's coming back, she's not going to be a teenage Slayer, so she's going to be training somebody. Maybe she's the new Giles. I don't know. But Boom gave us this Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer story in 2021. It only ran a few issues, but who knows? This could be like a futuristic, a future storyline, as we saw an older Slayer Buffy. Maybe that's the angle they go with the show. I don't know. But for fun, you can go and find these books. They're out there. Copies sell for only $3 to $5. Copies listed $5 to $2.69. So cover price and less, basically. So nothing wrong with finding a book for less than cover and giving it a shot. So it's just an option, just an idea. Who knows where we might go with Buffy, but figured I'd throw that one out there. And now, before I wrap up for today, I added these ones last minute because I know we will be kind of covering some of these Spider-Man books from your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man on the TAC show this week. So keep an eye out for that if you haven't seen it already. I know this is going to air on Thursday, so go back and watch that if you haven't watched it. But I don't know all of the things we're going to cover or all the characters we're going to end up covering because of that show. So I decided to take one special angle for this week and just cover the suits that we see in one episode that we got. As you guys know, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man started last week, dropped 2 episodes. This week, on Wednesday, we got 3 new episodes. So we're already almost halfway through the series because I think it's running 11, and we already got a decent number of episodes, and they're pretty good. I actually got to say, I do enjoy this show quite a bit. And this particular episode, episode 4, the one in the middle of today's drop, as I'm filming this on Wednesday, we got introduced to Spider-Man trying on a bunch of different looks, a bunch of different costumes, uniforms. Now, most of these ones that they kind of for fun run through this with his new pal Norman Osborn are these characters that end up in Slingers. I don't know if you remember that series Slingers from way back in the day, but these are characters that were alternate spider costumes, and then they became their own characters as other characters took up those mantles on their own. And then we got this Slingers book. So you had Hornet, you had Prodigy, you had Dusk, and you had Ricochet. Introduced in that Wizard number 0 issue. But it's a free issue and came with the Wizard, but something to keep an eye out for. It still does all right. I mean, look, about $10. Copies listed, $5 to $10. It's a fun little book. But realistically, though, this is the first appearance of these characters and the new people inside of them. These aren't Peter Parker wearing these suits. This are the other people wearing these suits, basically. So with that in mind, I felt like I didn't want to just cut it off there and say, well, you see all these costumes, and you do see the costumes for the first time in this Wizard number 0, but let's look at the first time Peter wore them, because that's, I think, more fun. So, I'm sorry, it's not Buffy. There's Prodigy. This is the Prodigy outfit. This is one of the first ones he tries on in this episode. He's looking like Thor. He makes a Thor joke. This one he wore in Spectacular Spider-Man number 256 from February 1998. This was during the Identity Crisis storyline, so he was trying out a bunch of different new personas for himself. And at the end of this issue, MJ helps him put together this look. Prodigy. Cool. No cape yet, but that is to come. These are not expensive books, folks. These are things you can find out there just for fun. $2.50 to $3. Copies sold for. Copies listed $4 to $7.50. It's an old Spectacular Spider-Man book, not one of his more popular runs, so you can find it. And it's a White Rabbit issue, so you got that. The next one he tries out in the cartoon, the current episode that's on Disney Plus right now, is the Hornet outfit. So he's buzzing around wearing this Hornet outfit. This becomes a whole separate character, but in the comics, back during Identity Crisis and Sensational Spider-Man, we had 4 Spider-Man titles at the time. In March of 1998, we get him trying out in this issue 27 of Sensational, this Hornet outfit. So there he is, Peter Parker dressed up as this Hornet character. This book, also, like the last, this one also has a variant cover too. I think they all might, where you actually have the alternate characters as like their number 1 issue, but on these other titles. It's like a B cover, though. So $6, $8 for that B cover with the Hornet on it. Copies listed for the regular edition are like $4 to $6. Again, very cheap issue. It's Peter Parker wearing that outfit for the first time. Now, the last one before he gets to the costume he settles in on by the end of the episode is the Dusk persona. And I say the last one because they actually skipped Ricochet. And that was on ASM. So we're going to skip that one because he didn't try it out and didn't wear it, on the cartoon. So we're going to finish up with Dusk because this is the last one he wears. He scares a little girl. This one is during the the Peter Parker Spider-Man run, number 90. What's actually was just Spider-Man at the time. They eventually added the Peter Parker, but it was just the regular Spider-Man that started with McFarlane, that run. But issue 90, JR was drawing this. This is where we get this look for him, and he's like a flying squirrel, just wearing all black. Cool. As you can see, it didn't last very long for Peter wearing it, but there it is. This book, again, not expensive. Copies, $3, $5. Copies listed, $3 to $5. It's fun. This is stuff you can find out there. That's why I'm pointing it out, because these are legit books you can probably find on those cheap boxes. So just for fun, you want to go back and collect these things to kind of tie back into the current show that's on TV. That's what I'm getting at here. Comics should be fun, and that's why I'm doing this. I like reading these things. So with that all said, that's all I got for you this week. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully I pointed out some books that you can go and hunt when you're flipping through those boxes, or even just a few things you just grab just to have a laugh or a giggle. And with that all said, I'll see you all soon with some more content. All right, later.